the person that's easy could finesse. Like, so say like if
Hello and welcome to this. I think it's the fifth time or something that we are doing this live coding stuff. Um, so maybe little recap of what we did last time. um, so we visited Jan Sabbe's Petindr, alum kata, and we did a bunch of these exercises. So we built a Tinder application in which you can match with pets, cute little pets, by liking or disliking them. There was an I button, an information button that showed a profile text overlay. When you randomly matched with a pet, you would get this overlay right here. And then we built a separate application to be able to chat to these pets as well. Then all of this stuff was backed by um, just a simple Express server that we connected to via WebSockets to allow us to chat to our pets, basically. Now, there was um, some thought in my head going on what to do next, and there already is something like it. We've done all of these exercises, by the way. So if you want to rewatch that, please go ahead. You can rewatch this episode afterwards if you wanna. So next up, I want to be working towards this goal here where we are going to be routing between the home and the chat application. So there is like a send message button right here just when you match. And we want to, when you click on it, we want to move to this different screen where you're able to talk to the pet. Um, Now, before we do that, I wanted to start using unit tests so that we don't get confused by um, the magic, even though it's not really that magical behind the URL parser, but it will help us explain and also think about what we want our application to be doing, basically. So today we're gonna do some unit tests, or we're gonna start off trying them. And then we'll see where that gets us. If it goes fast enough, I might just switch to doing this exercise all in one go in one sitting. And if not, then yeah, just shout it out. I'll try to keep an eye on what you guys are saying in the chat, so don't be shy and let me know if something is wrong. Or if something needs more explanation. I'll do my best. I don't know a lot about it either, but I'll try to, yeah, give you some explanation. So let's go straight to code. So what I did, I just did it a couple of minutes ago, is I set up my program, or my project, sorry, to be able to run with unit testing. So the way that um, the directory structure is set up right now is there is a backend, a front end directory, and the backend is basically just the server JSON file, JavaScript file that we talk to in our during our application, and then in front end, that's everything you can see here. So in our front end, we've got just our source code. Now you can ignore this file right here. And then we've got the static mockups that Jan provided as well to be able to use HTML to Elm to convert HTML into Elm. There's a styling directory as well with CSS and then a bunch of images. And then you can see that I've already created a tests directory, but I think we can actually revert this stuff and then I'll do it over along with you guys. Cool. So if you Google Elm unit testing, there are some good articles, but then there's also a GitHub repository pointing to the Elm community's elm-test package. It comes with documentation as well, so hooray for that. And there's a quick start in here as well, showing how you can write unit tests or suites. Well, and then suites as describe methods or functions, and then eventually test functions with assertions in them. Now, if you look at this structure and you're familiar with Jasmine from JavaScript, then you're also going to be familiar with this sort of structure as well. So I'll try to explain it a little bit, or maybe I'll do it after we run through the installation stuff. So before you can actually start running your Elm tests, you can install, or you should install globally, the elm-test node package. So I already did this, so that means I can run elm-test like this. There's that. So once you have globally installed the elm-test node package, you could navigate to your root directory that contains our elm package.json. So this one. This hasn't updated. Oh, wait. Yeah. So this can go. There we go. Now, from here, so from this position where we have our elm package.json, you can go elm test and then add along the init argument. And this is going to set up a directory parallel with your source directory. So now there's source and there's also a tests directory. And your tests directory has a separate elm package.json file, which is already configured to be running for your code that's been set up in this other elm package.json for your regular project. A lot of stuff has been added as dependencies for you, so that's great. And then since that's the one thing you can do, let's see what the other stuff that is necessary. So the test directory was already created. Then we need to copy all the dependencies from our regular Elm package.json into the tests one. So, and then this is a fair warning right here. So the dependencies need to stay in sync, but more explicitly, the versions of those dependencies should stay in sync as well. Now, I don't think we've got added or non-core dependencies in our project, since we've been just doing easy stuff. So we don't need to copy any of our we don't need to copy any dependencies over from our project's Elm package.json over to the tests one. So that's easy. That step is done, and then we can run Elm test. So let's see. Elm test from the directory that contains both the source and the tests directories. And there was some loading going on. And this is our output. So we've got a test run is incomplete because there is one to do remaining. here we needed to do, what do we need to do? Implement our first test. And then they have a nice pointer to our, or to the documentation that I had open right here, which basically contains this bit right here. So they already give a good example saying that your test or in your file should start with a suite. So let's just write that as well then. So we can ignore this. Don't save. Turning off my Windows sounds because that's the one thing I keep on forgetting doing every single time. Okie dokie. So here an example. Here our suite should look like, well, it should start off with the describe. There we go. So this can go. And what are we gonna describe? Let's just take the same example. So let's suppose that we're testing the string module. So you want to, how do you say that? You want to layer or nest your tests within something that makes sense to you. So in our case, or in this example, we want to be testing the string module. Now, what is in the string module? Well, there is going to be a function called string.reverse. So let's nest that into a different describe block. And then this describe block has another list argument. And I think the example shows you can already go with a test. So there you go. Has no effect on a palindrome. Oops. So there we go. And now test is like the final thing. So you want to be adding a function here that's supposed to how do you say that? That's supposed, so now this thing should contain a function that contains your actual test. So we should start off by writing an anonymous function like this, where we can say that when we expect, so expect is something that gets imported from here. We expect equal, what is the stuff we expect? Well, I want to reverse a palindrome. So this is a palindrome and I want to apply string.reverse to it. So this thing is the first argument to the equal method or to the equal assertion. And then what do I expect as an output? That's right, just Hannah, just like that. Now let's see what happens if I save. Nothing, because I haven't set up a watch expression just yet. You could do that, but let's just keep running our test thing manually. So now, instead of the to do, we get our test run has passed. Now what happens if I misspell the name Hannah and I run the test again? I get an explanation that says, well, within the string module, there is a string.reverse, and string.reverse should have no effect on a palindrome. And then it also produces the output. So here it says the actual value, and it's expected to equal this thing here, and it's right here. So this is not a cursor or anything, it's just marked. This thing is incorrect. So in this case, string.reverse has been implemented correctly, I assume. So we should just fix our expectation, just like that, and then run the test again and see that it runs again. Now you can see that this can grow tiresome if you have to keep on rerunning your tests manually all the time. So there is an elm-test -- watch expression that keeps on watching for changes. Now, whenever I change something and I save my file, it's gonna just rerun all of the tests that you have. And I think that you have defined basically in your source directories right here. So this elm package.json contains a reference to the files or the directory up from this tests directory. So that's the front end root. So that's this thing. And then also the source directory, so right here. And then of course our own tests as well, so the ones that are listed right here. Now there are some mistakes that you could be doing. So let's say you've got a different a different function, and we are only exposing this function, then not a suite function. Now, if you look at the output right here, somehow elm-test knows that you should have exposed the suite function. So let's see if I rename this thing. Trying break stuff. So now maybe I broke it because of the watch thing that didn't pick it up. Yeah, okay. So you have to take a little bit care when you rename or when you start renaming your functions and you're running them in a watch expression. It'll like have stuff cached, so don't try to rename stuff because then it won't work anymore like you expect it to. So this is the actual thing I was looking for. Here in this case, elm-test is going to complain that example is a module with the top level test values, but it didn't expose these functions that you wanted elm-test to interpret as tests. So as you can see, it's not complaining about the not a suite variable because, well, it's not a suite. So if we run this thing again, so there's no convention that this thing should be called suite. Excuse me. It'll also explain why not. So these tests will not get run. Please either expose them or move them out of the top level. So we want to basically expose all of the things. So now we've got one thing that is in fact a suite, and then basically, sorry, that is a test, and then another suite that's just a function. Now we're exposing both of them, but elm-test will make sure that it's only going to run the actual tests. And so that's the thing right here, running one test and then it works. So I hope that's clear for everyone. Sorry. What else is there? Right, so here they also have an anonymous function, but okay, so they first they do switch the actual and the expected around. So maybe that's gonna be better. So let's check it out once again when it's failing. what it looks like. Yeah, indeed. So it's saying that this should expect to be equal to this. And then indeed, so if this is the actual, then that's the output of the thing that we're testing. So it really should be in the reverse order, like this then. So first it's actual, the thing you expect. Oh, sorry. So first it's the expectation, and then there's the actual. Yeah, that makes more sense. Okay. So maybe they switched it up then, because I don't remember. So I don't remember using it and using it like this. I always thought it should first contain the stuff that you want to run, and then the expectation. But this is fine as long as we know. Does the documentation say this? Yeah, it does. Here you're testing list.length, and this is the expectation, so the expected value or expected result. Okie dokie. All right. Let us see. Let us see. Is there something else I want to explain? Yeah, maybe there are different. Yeah, so in this case, string reverse only has the one test. But I think, yeah, so here they also expect a different thing as well. Yeah, this is great actually. I think this is new, so that they changed it like this. Or at least it's something new I am learning. So instead of the braces, I guess you can also use the underscore to signify I don't care about this value. Let's see if, so I now added another test and it's still watching for changes. So if I save this, passed and failed, right? So we should still fix this one. So one passed, the new one, and failed the one that was failing before. Okay, whatever, let it fail. Right, there you go. Okay. So then when ABCDEFG is the thing that is eventually being applied to string.reverse, the function under test, and the result of this should be equal to this thing. That's how you should read this test, basically. So it's kind of the other way around, because I bet you're used to seeing this. I guess we could just do that. Right? Yeah. So having applied reverse to ABCDEFG, we pipe that into expect.equal, where so and basically it's the exact same thing as right here. But then this is just like a neat example on how to pipe stuff into expect.equal. So when they say that it has been designed to work with those pipe symbols, it means that the last argument is always the more difficult to evaluate one, I guess, or like it can take different function, so you can chain it. Maybe then this stuff. I don't know all that much about the fuzzy tests, but basically what it does is, or maybe we should look up this thing. Which I first learned about at Domain-Driven Design Europe last year, or this year actually, in January. But so basically what it comes down to is that maybe in the example it'll become clear as well. So with randomly generated inputs, but these randomly generated inputs, you can also sort of limit or constrain to values that only make sense to you. For example, let's say there's like an arbitrary reason why your string that you need to reverse is only 10 characters long. You could also constrain your randomized thing with that as well, with the fuzzy testing logic. But in the beginning, I think we can just get along with, or be fine without running or using fuzzy logic tests, fuzzy tests. Okay. So I think we've got everything up and running right now. We have an example Elm file that has not a suite. It has a suite. It has unused imports. Not anymore, it doesn't. And then just some tests that we want to change. Now, I already prepared like a little thing, but we can ignore this actually. And we can just get rid of that. There we go. And now we can just start a new file for the home application. So home, let's call it home tests or something. And then it should be the home tests module, which exposes all of the things. And it should import, I already forget, like expect and test. Oops. There we go. And now it should just have some test. Now, what is this thing that we want to test? Maybe like give a small example of some simple function that we wrote. Maybe this thing, the conditionally render function. So let's call it conditionally render. It's a test. This thing equals, so first we start off with a describe. We describe our, so in this case, I've got one file representing the test cases for one source file. So home has home tests.elm. And then from there, since a home should also expose, it is also exposing all of the things, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but it's an easy thing in our example. So I want to be describing how conditionally render works. So I'll just start off with that. And then what are the test cases that we could do with this? So conditionally render takes in a div and a boolean, and it then outputs another div. Basically, that's all the stuff that's happening. And we're gonna need these imports soon enough. And it should only render, or it should just return the thing that we passed along to it when this boolean is true. Otherwise, we just render an empty div. So maybe we can say like should return empty div when argument is false. Like this. That should be like a new describe then. And this describe has a test. And what should this test do? Well, actually this, right? So we could just, we don't need the extra describe in this case. Right, so then there's our anonymous function. Here is the equal that we can write. And let's try out, well, let's keep it simple for now. I expect an empty div like this. When do I expect that? Well, when I conditionally render, and let's also already start the braces for this one as well. When I conditionally render a div that has text test in it or something, and then this should have with false. I'm going to simplify this by extracting it out of there. To be rendered div or something. And then I can write a let in expression where I say to be rendered div equals this thing. So then I don't need to care about too many braces in my equals or my assertion expression. Now what's I'm complaining about? Closing brace. All right. I want to pipe whatever the output of this thing is into this test. Okay, and now Elm is complaining about, well, what did you mean by this div thing? So we'll need to import HTML. Now he's complaining about what is this conditionally rendered thing. So now it's actually saying conditionally render is expecting one argument. Well, it's basically this test case, right? So maybe we should call it a conditionally rendered test. And now he's saying, well, where is this conditionally rendered thing at? Well, it's in home. So I want to import home as well. Import home, exposing all the things. Exposting. Coolio. Now, we haven't seen a test run yet. Oops. Watch. And what do you know? it actually works. Now, what if we mess up the implementation? Conditionally render. And maybe it should just always render this div. So note that I just changed source implementation. You cannot read property type of undefined. That's a JavaScript error. What if I rerun? Nope. What? Oh, what is going on? Because, well, I expected this output to be like nice. It also says that, well, pass2 failed 1. So it did also take into account this example as a test method. See if there's just something wrong with importing stuff. It's really in the div thing. Maybe it cannot easily equal this div constructor then or something. But then if I change my implementation, then it works. Maybe if you just flip them around, see what happens then. It should also produce a failing test. Nope. Then maybe there is something that you need extra, because I think like the problem is within the parsing of, or like the output of the expectation. So maybe there's something that we could look up. Maybe there's something specific, you know, like testing, or elm-test HTML or something. Well. Button has the expected test. Ah, yeah, cool. This is cool. So instead of writing regular expect assertions, you can have more specific ones where you can build up the actual element that you're trying to look up. And in this example, they want to find in HTML a button tag that has a text, I'm a button. And you do that on this div, basically. So it's sort of like WebDriver, if you're familiar with that framework. These are normal expectations, so you can just use them with fuzz as well. Oh yeah, You can query for single or multiple elements. Right. Excellent. Let's try this out. Cool. So this is how you need to reference this package now. So there should be like a better way to do this, right? Maybe if you go to the source, it'll show you how to install it, or what you could also do, I think, is copy this and then use elm install, I think. Yeah, but I only want to install it in the tests thing, so I need to move to the tests directory and then install this package. Oh, sorry, package install, of course. Configured successfully. Yep. Seems to be working indeed. That means I can also import. I'm just gonna guess now. HTML test HTML. Oh, there was an example. Test.html. .query as query. Right, so instead of this equal, what we could do now is think. So basically, I should test for non-existence of this text element. But I really want to test, like, it should be like a completely empty div. How do you do that? Query. Go back to this thing. Translate an HTML value into a single query. I could do that, I guess. This makes way more sense. So even though these list items are nested in the unordered list, this is the thing that you're doing from HTML on. So we could do that. Ooh, or has not anything, basically. Like missing an is empty thing. Right, so this is my thing I want tested, right? And I want to pipe this into this query dot from HTML. Correct? Yep. And then I want to pipe this into something that says our. Why did it only give me like some results? And now this is like, it lists it 3 times for some reason. I don't want to use contains, right? Because if anything, so if I had something like this, then my test would work, but it would be a false positive because it does contain a div with an empty, with no children basically. But I don't want to have this false positive. So let's think about how I can maybe I can just call children and then this takes a selector. Return the matched elements immediate child elements. And which selectors can I use? With the given value. All. Yeah. Oh, that's the combining. Attributes, classes, style, checked, selected. Yeah. And this thing says you need to be finding stuff within this div. I guess then if I wrap it or something, if I can fake out the body. So if I go like this. Then I have a wrapping div, I guess, which I then pipe through to from HTML, which I then can ask, give me all of the children that have tag div, which should supply me with the output of this thing. And then once I have that, I can say has nothing. It's empty. Contains. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could also do this, I guess, which should give me back the first thing, and then count. Oh yeah, and count passes along an integer to your expectation. Okie dokie. So, what was it? The index or first was the other thing? Was there a first as well? First element in a match. I don't want that. I just want the first thing. Index 0 or something. And then I want query count. And then the anonymous function. Oh yeah, or actually expect.equal. What do I expect? Expect 0. It was not like this. Oh boy. It's expecting a function. And here, this index thing is also wrong. Why is that? Oh, is a shorthand for query.index0. Okay. But this first thing is just gonna supply me with one thing, right? Because it says single. Hang on. Right, and I need the children of this thing. Phew. Matching anything. Wait, then I don't need first. If there were no matches, the test will fail. I really want like an all selector or something. no, not query. Find. Is this maybe why it's supplying me with so many? Do I even need this? I guess I do. Find what? Find tag. I haven't imported these selectors yet. Tag div, I guess. Find all divs. Or just the first one. I guess I could also write this, and then it should not have a text tag. Right. Okay. So let's go up a level again and start testing. Okay. And then if I flip this, it should fail. This is all also quite strange. Because I expected it to die on this thing. There is no snarf tag. I'm sorry. And according to the documentation, matches elements that have the given tag. But then I use that in a find. All the given selectors, if no descendants match, or if more than one matches, the test will fail. So this should match with none, right? Or is it because I haven't written a proper expectation just yet? Has not. Hmm. You can also test on ID, that's nice. So I want this. And then this should be html.id or something. I don't know this by heart. We'll have to look at the HTML documentation, elm-html. Deprecated. Use HTML and elm. Oh. How do I provide IDs to my elements? Okay, let's cheat. Oh, snap. Just like I wrote it. Maybe it's also because it's ambiguous or something. I have no idea what the I is. Going back to the guide. No. Our unordered list example also does not have IDs, I'm afraid. Maybe this might have. Nope. Ah. God. More Google skills. One of these was deprecated, and I think it was this one. I did see something like ID in here, right? Super common attributes, ID, in HTML attributes. Oh. Yeah. Thank the heavens. Now I can use this probably, right? Yeah. Okie dokie. Then I should probably also be able to do this. No, then it is ambiguous. Okay. Yet my test still passes. How is it passing? I do not understand. Bliss. Okay, so let's switch it to this thing. Now this fails. Okay. 0 matches found for this query. Ah. Nope. So this is the actual empty div. So now we are definitely testing something different, right? Should return to be rendered div when argument is true. The only annoying thing is that I cannot write a test for the opposite somehow. Okay. Okay, so now it does triggered on this thing for some reason. Oh yeah, and it cannot find any testing div either because this thing is not wrapped inside another div. So now we have to do this thing again. No. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Cool. What now? Tag. There is no tag. This is annoying. Okay, we need to find some neat little thing here. Does it work like that? Maybe. That's more neat. All right. So we finally have our first test. Tdiff when this is false. I want this to be false. And yeah, I really want like contains nothing. Maybe like this. Yeah. So that is also incorrect. Because this is not the testing div, this is the expected div. And I can also leave out this probably and then use first instead of find. And then my wrapping div can contain that thing. Yeah, so this keeps on returning something, but I want to be able to just say exists. If it exists, then it's fine. Nope, still here. maybe I can go like this and then pass along the to be rendered div. Doesn't work like that, apparently. Oh, okay. If I wrap this, then it does. Two are failing still. So that fixes it. Then I don't need an ID for that. No, I should really. No. So this is sadly the only way to confirm that there is only one. That because there is no contains exactly, right? I really want to just write this. Query.contains exactly to be rendered div. And then this should fail when there is something else than the to be rendered div. I can't see, I can't find an example in the documentation where there is such a method. So I'll have to make do with this for now. And then return empty div when argument is false. So when my div is also passed along and I pipe it to from HTML, and then I say find, this is gonna fail already. So now maybe now I can just go straight into this thing then. Will it fail if I switch them around? Ah, cool. But this one still. So now this one fails, but I really want this one to fail. How else am I gonna assert that my test actually works? Fucking hell. Maybe I can do like that. Wait. children with a selector. And if I leave my selector empty, what does it return? All? Yes. So an empty selector returns all the things. Okay. Ah. I want to ignore this thing. There was like a new way to do that, right? Ignoring unit tests. So ignoring unit tests it comes in handy when you're unsure how your unit testing framework works, Jones. So uh, typically in Jasmine it would be like this, right? X test or something. Skip test. God, do I really have to comment this out? Okay. Okay. Please work. It does not work. Yeah. It does have children. Wait. No, it's incorrect. Yeah. So now I'm checking for the children on the thing that gets returned. So our empty div. So this is really how it should work. Now let's see if I can also apply the same thing without having to wrap this into like this testing div thing. I'm not using it anyway, right? This might still work. Except it doesn't. That's kind of weird. Oh, there's just white space. Where's that contains thing again? contains. This thing in a wrapper. Okay, so this applies to just a single. What? But then why doesn't this work? Because I'm a dumbass. I wrote this and that breaks. It should be like this. Hurrah! Phew! Well, now we do have a... we don't need a selector anymore. We can get rid of this crap as well. All right. Christ on a cracker. So there we go. Our very first unit test for an HTML. So that was like a little side note. I expected everything to work, but as you noticed, the divs or the regular test library doesn't have any methods to, like, it doesn't know how to output the information when tests are failing. Like when you saw that when the test did not work, or sorry, when the test failed, there's output involved, like it's saying, hey, this is what your from HTML thing looks like, and I'm expecting this thing to be in there. That sort of output was missing, and you get this weird error message saying, what was it again? Type error undefined. So that led us to believe that there is some different assertion framework specifically to HTML, and there was. And then we figured it out, and here we are. Cool. So I am rerunning these tests. Make sure that they... What? That they work again. And then I'm committing. Now it's... Ooh. Why is there a git ignore in here? To ignore elm stuff. But I guess my git ignore on top level also contains elm stuff. Yep. So I don't really need this git ignore file in here because it's already covered, right? I guess that got added by running elm-test in it or something. Okie dokie. Let's add all the things and then see what we added. Yeah, this all checks out. Wait, what did we... Oh. My bad. Alright, I got rid of a stupid space character. HTML-test. Great. Cool. Well, I hope that this was clear or clear enough. What can we do next? I don't want to go about and test everything again. Now we've just written a simple test for this. Actually, we should flip these so that it can also be used for chaining. What else can we do? Advanced pet. This should be okay for a unit test, I guess. So let's write advanced pet test, which is also a test. Oh wait, let's format first. Okay. And then this is once again a describe of what? Well, of this method. And we want to test that. What do we want to test? Well, that when our models pets are current. Forget what the name is. Is it just pets? Next pets. Next pets is empty. No advancement. Oh, it just returns an empty. Next pet remains empty. Ooh. I thought this was deprecated. Then we expect equal. What do we expect equal? Our advanced pet with model, which we don't yet have. Let in model is what it's a model. And our model looks like this. And we're already importing everything. So we could use this thing. Now it becomes apparent. How bad our code is. So false current pet is princess, I guess. Next pets, and this is the interesting one. It's an empty array. Next pets, then there's false, and then there's princess once again as a possible next matched pet. And I want to advance pet. Pipe this into this equals, and what do I want it to? I want nothing to change really, right? Once again, looking for a closing brace. Once again, same mistake. Now, princess apparently, because in home, we import princess from pets, so elm-test. Watch again. Our test is working, but I wanted to fail first. This is the big disadvantage of testing after, of course. Wait, no. Advanced pet. Let's always return princess or something. And it fails. It contains, oh my god. Oh my god. at least it's saying, well, next bets here, this thing is incorrect because it marks it as what is incorrect while it's expecting an empty array. So this thing here. Okay. I think we all agree that it's not very legible this way. So that test is working, and this seems to be working as well. What does format say? Format not complaining. Okay then. What else can we check? Maybe like happy path stuff. When so we move the head of this thing. Ooh. Yeah, we move the head of this thing into another variable on our model. So this thing returns a model. But really we just want to, let's make it, because I would be cheating if I wanted to do like this. Actual equals. And then what I could do is actuals next bets. And this is just the array then. Why am I changing it here now? Christ. I did this. So it's the same, but it makes it clear that I'm only testing this array from to be empty. And here I want to test that like this. So when it only has one value, for example, cricket, and I do advanced model, then it still becomes empty. There we go. Yep. Then there's got to be a better name for that, but I'm blanking out. All right. So these are all tests on next bets, as you can see. Next bets on our model. Now, advanced bet doesn't just have an impact on our next bets array list or a list. It also has an impact on the current bet. So this one function modifies two things. And this is why our tests are looking like this. So what you could do now is wrap all of this in another describe block. And we can call this next pet's behavior or something. Tests. And group like that. And then we could also, something is wrong. Yeah. And describe current pet. Right. And then current pet has similar looking tests. Is empty. In that case, our current pet is princess. Defaulted to princess. So just like that. And maybe make this cricket. And then when I advance with an empty list, this should be princess indeed, but it shouldn't be a list anymore. And I want to access current pet. No. Let's see if that test also failed. Explosions. Cool. Okie dokie. Like that. And we've got cricket in there. And we've got princess. This is confusing because so we've got princess in there. We started off with cricket, then princess. And then when we advance, we should also get princess. Okay. That's confusing. Ah, capital C. Okay. And now we've got the complete advanced pet tests, I think. I mean, I can't think of an of a better or like a non-existing case. So let's commit. Okay, you know what? There was one more thing that I wanted to do before we can actually do the routing behavior. And that is getting like a proper project layout. So right now, if you ignore styling and static mockups stuff, we've got an Elm project containing a source directory, a tests directory. I hope we can destroy Elm example. Tests example. Okay. With everything in there basically, right? However, having all of model stuff and then view and update stuff in one file, it can become very unmaintainable at some point. Because you also want to use this module system to encapsulate behavior so that no one else can reuse stuff that isn't supposed to be reusable. For example, you might not want to, let's see, or you might want to actually reuse conditionally render, but then in this case, you need to import home, and home is exposing everything. So if you want to reuse this function, you need to import home, which then takes in everything. Even the view function, even the main, even the everything. So that can't be a good way to go about encapsulating behavior or encapsulating functions and stuff. So there is a better way, thank God. You can actually extract those things into their own files and therefore also their own modules, and then unit test those modules so that you know that they can be easily used anywhere. Now, since I have no real good idea on how to do this in production code, there's this super cool guy called Richard Feldman, and you might have heard about him. He has a lot of YouTube videos in which he, well, basically his videos are just all talks at conferences, since he is the, like, I think like the dev lead or something behind No Red Ink, the company that uses Elm in production for a long time ago already. And well, he wrote this blog post right here. And in this case, what he does is he writes this known real world application I haven't really taken a look at that thing just yet, the real world application. And it's completely open sourced on GitHub. But the more interesting part of this project is the way he sets up his project structure. So he doesn't have tests just yet because he's waiting for the new elm-test thing to be released or something. But in here, there's already some cool information. He splits his files up into these 4 folders, and then he further splits those up as well. So in data is where you can find model stuff, I think. Views is purely just for viewing, so also reusable components and stuff like that is in there. Request is like services to get stuff from a REST API to into Elm. Basically, it's just like a translation layer, you can say. And then pages contain compositions of views, I guess, with all of the stuff in it. So just like bundled together functionality. But he explains it all in this pretty short blog post. So it's really not that big. See, and this is where it's already done. So it's not done at the very bottom. So yeah, read this. And then what I want to do is basically turn my structure into this as well, or turn our Elm pet application structure into this one as well, before we move on to routing. He does have the one file that contains the route as well. So if we start looking at this thing, there is really easy to read logic on where paths should go. So it comes down to bundling or coupling a text like in your URL to a route type, and then routing further loads in these pages or something. I don't really. I'll have to look it up properly on how that stuff really works. But that's gonna be for the next time, so for next week somewhere. What is there else to say? I will be visiting or attending Socrates Belgium, the conference, and it's an unconference format, so hopefully there will be some Helm stuff involved as well. I know for a fact that Thomas Koopman is going there, and then Vincent Verhoeven and all of those fun guys that I'm hoping to play with. So yeah, then I'll say a little something about that the week after. So in 2 weeks, you'll get like a little report or something. If you're also going there, I hope to see you. Please just come say hi. I think that's about it. If you've got any comments, I was unclear, or I should have prepared better, or I like that you are discovering this stuff as you go, just tell me. And then you can do that, by the way, by reaching out to me on Twitter, email. If there's somewhere an email, I'm not really sure. So maybe just not email. Find me on Twitter. Write it in the chat. And that's that. Cool. So thanks for tuning in, if you did, and hope to see you next time. See ya!